ends in strawberry shortcake. And it's true. So I was trying to bring some kind of shape, rhythmic shape to free verse. So I'm not set in any particular way except the one rule has to have a chord in it. And to make it work, since you're not using rhymes, you've got to stick with one of those three inputs. So I can do that, but where I still struggle is that hearing the linking of vowels across each line, that's just a gift I don't think I'll ever have. I mean, that's just something that happens magically for a line or two, but trying to do that all the way through is going to take somebody with more talent.
So do you revise a lot?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think I write very quickly and sketchy and put it in there and give myself permission to make it sprawling and prolix, and then go back and then I hammer the lines and make sure they're with me.
So the poem you just read, amazing, by the way, that came into being from all of the big impressions from the time you left the station until you arrived, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and you know, there were places I had to cut, but it stayed there on my desk for years because it was so overwhelming. I couldn't, goodness, how am I going to, I don't know, it was 20 plus pages of scrawl on this. And what I find is sometimes I'll catch the Greek rhythm and I'll get it. Other times I'll have to go back and work it over. I went back and revised that in December.
I can't imagine.
And then when I rode the train up, again, I checked to see how accurate it
Uh-oh. It's overthinking.
was. It was cheating, yeah. I mean, Ford always claimed that impressionism is not the corrected chronicle. Right? It's impressionistic, so it's not going to be exact. But I wanted to see how close it was. And I did a similar thing in Louisville, and I took Amy in the heart of Louisville 2 years ago, because I had written another section, and I wanted to check it, and they knocked the building down.
Oh.
And I recorded, so we had to drive around for a little bit until I figured that one out.
I love it. I love it.
Any more questions?
I love train. I love to go on the trains, and I always think that I'll go because I can get away, because as you all know, just from even knowing me this moment, I talk all the time. So I always think this will be a time when I can, read and I can't stop looking outside and watching these things and thinking about them. So this was amazing to me personally, because if I only had that ability to say what you just said with all the impressions. I can't stop looking outside and thinking about what used to be there, or the people inside the house. I love that idea, so I love it. So that's the end of that.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
William Carlos Williams had this notion that your visual perceptions, that in looking outside the window, you or I would somehow make a selection, which he called the true value of things, and he would then get it down. And then Jack Kerouac came along in the late 40s and 50s, and he called it sketching, and he would just take a notebook like this and walk around and do these little prose sketches of all the things that he saw. And the hope was that you're really seeing something there rather than just ephemera.
That will come to you.
Yeah. So and Ginsberg would do the thing on the train, but in the car, someone would drive and he'd have a little Ampex tape recorder, and he'd just speak it out and record it that way. So it was episodic; it wasn't constantly with him, but that was the idea, and I just wanted to try to revive it. And when you think about it, it gives you a structure for a poem, a long poem.
I bet, right? Sure.
Which is the hard thing.
Not me, but you. Don't give me that. But all I know is I never have read a book on a train trip, even out east getting a room on a train. I've never been able to read a book because I start and then I'm at the window. At night I don't sleep because it's not because I can't. It's just that I have to look out and see the darkness and the towns. So anyway, enough about me and trains, but anyway, Brian, thank you, I love that.
Well, thank you all for coming.
Were you ever influenced by Lawrence Ferlinghetti? Did you ever go to the North Beach area? Did you ever go to City Lights Bookstore?
Yes.
Did you ever get involved in that?
Gosh, it's in one of the long poems there. Ferlinghetti came out there, and I've met him. He was involved with the Kerouac School, and then years later, I finally made it out to North Beach. And
What does it look like now? Because when I was out there in the 50s in Santa Clara Valley, kept telling us, go out there and look at the North Beach areas. Everything's going on out there. But I was too young then. I was only about 7.
Well, I thought it was quite nice. It's definitely a kind of a bohemian area.
It's not too touristy yet, or any or slummy.
I mean,
yet?
no, it's a mixture of things.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the cafes,
Mhm.
like the Cafe Vesuvio and things like
Is
that.
Hungry Eye still there? That was
I
where
think
one-
so,
Hungry
yeah. My
Eye.
father talks about it. Hungry Eye, the Purple Onion.
Yeah.
There are those places, and then there's the Big Owl Speakeasy. There's some kind of sleazy, whatever you want to call them, burlesque
Yeah.
places
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
But City Lights is more or less unchanged. And you go across the alleyway into that bar, which has been there since 1948, and it's kind of like a shrine to the beats. But it was clear that bookstore functions as the center of a community, and with writers and so on happening there. So
I was going to ask you another question. How did you happen to make a connection with the Naropa Institute in Boulder, Colorado? Isn't that where you were?
yeah, well,
Okay,
I was a freshman at the University of Kansas in Lawrence,
Oh.
and Ginsberg and William Burroughs came in and gave a reading, and I went up to Ginsberg afterward, and there was the whole faculty of the English department was gathered around him, and I said, is it true, Mr. Ginsberg, that you still take LSD and combine it? And they all started laughing, and he said, yes, and I combine it with Buddhist meditation. So anyway, so he told me about the program out there, and this is on spring break. I hitchhiked, believe it or not, all the way from Lawrence to Boulder in the days when you could still do that.
Yeah, safely. Yeah.
Well, relatively. I don't know. That's a long story there, but anyway, I went out there and decided I would transfer.
How long were you out there?
About a year and a summer, 2 summers and 2 years.
Okay, and you just studied with different people out there and took
Yeah, they had, it's just got down, this was early days, this was like 1980, 81.
Oh, that's really,
Yeah,
well, for me, that's like.
well, I mean, early days in the life of that
Yeah,
institution,
right.
because it had only opened, I think, in 75 or 6, and they were just getting accredited at that point when I was there. So they would come, there would only be 6, less than 10, fewer than 10 students there during the winter months. And then in the summer, people from all over the world would come in. And what was unique, and it still is unique about that, is that these were not, there's a whole world of poetry outside of academia. And back in those days, in the 80s, that was a very separate, in my opinion, it was a very separate wall. And it's no longer the case, I believe. But anyway, a lot of non-academic based poets would come out there.
William Burroughs, did you ever meet him?
Yeah, he read quite a bit out there.
He was there at the institute?
Yes, he would come out there every summer, and he read quite a lot. He told me that he was deeply influenced by Wordsworth, and a lot of his focus on concrete images were based on his reading of Wordsworth. So that was a lucky thing for me to listen to him read. And then I knew Gregory Corso,
I was going to mention him.
who was, he's like the American poet Modi, the wild man of American poetry. And so I noticed that he didn't get aggressive with anybody if you didn't open your mouth and show how little you knew. So I just stood there quietly and gradually gained his confidence, and then became his kind of a secretary, literary executor / bodyguard. And you know Gregory. So Well, I tell the story, one of the assignments I was given was to go pick up Gregory at the airport. This is the old Denver airport. So I drive out there, and I didn't know, what he looked like particularly. And he came off with the airplane wearing, you remember these little vinyl Halloween masks we used to have, the really expensive? Wearing a pair of vinyl, they were llamas, facing each other, pink and white llamas, and he's wearing this mask and he comes off the airplane, and he's singing, "Hi, diddly dee, a poet's life for me." Okay, that's all I got. So, anyway.
That's a giveaway.
Yeah, that was a good one. But
Well, you're probably too young for the Merry Pranksters, Ken Casey.
he came out there one summer. Yeah, I met him. They
And,
came out.
Aldous Huxley, did you ever?
I did not meet Huxley.
Mhm.
Yeah. Casey came out with this gigantic 1960s era Cadillac convertible, 20 feet long, and rolling out from his farm out west. And a lot of the seminal figures of the 60s paid tribute, would trek out there in the summer. They had the first Kerouac conference, so a lot of people out there, Timothy Leary and
A lot of people from the CIA experiments at Stanford were out there.
really? Yeah, right. Leary, who else? Who committed suicide? The activist, Abby Hoffman.
Oh, and
All those people, because they looked at Ginsberg as a kind of a leader. He was older.
yeah.
And I think at the time the question is, what happened to all the energy, the positive energy
Yeah.
of the 60s?
Yeah, what happened to that energy?
Yeah. And,
Yeah, I worry about that too. It was a tremendous era. I mean, the 60s were just absolutely incredible in terms of the highs and lows.
Yeah, they had people like Daniel Ellsberg come and so forth. But yeah, the question was, now what do we do? Are we going to start something up? In those days, it was going to be Central America, I remember. There was great fear that another Vietnam was in the offing.
Yeah.
That was a great experience to have. But don't hitchhike anymore.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming.
Brian has both this wonderful book, so we have a little table in there if any of you would like that, and I'm sure he'll sign it for you. And we have some coffee cake and blueberries and strawberries and coffee. I made coffee today, not decaf. If you can't take a half a cup of caffeinated coffee, then we have water. But please move your chairs around, come and have some refreshments. And